All Access Live with Kevin Rankin.
What is happening, my peoples? God, I miss you. If you have missed out on All Access Live, you may not even know that I was on tour in Europe for a little while. So I did some pre-recorded sessions while I was gone. And if you really followed things closely, you may have known that I was in the hospital with crazy back issues and all the stuff that beholds aging. So if you know of any of that stuff, then you know how excited I am to be here today. This is awesome because not only do I have a cool guest, but I want to make sure that you know this. If you're watching this on anything else other than YouTube, I want you to go to the link below. YouTube.com/all access live with Kevin Rankin will get you opportunity to subscribe to my channel. You can become a member and have limited access to only things that members get. You can help sponsor and support the show. You can go back and look through over 240 episodes that I've done since May of 2020. And then most of those opportunities have been brought to you by my next sponsors. So I want to make sure that I thank 5-Star Guitars. 5-Star's based in Oregon, which means that if you're outside of Oregon, you can order guitars, lessons, repairs, and not have to pay sales tax. And then if you use the promo code below of All Access 15, you're going to save 15% on top of it. Also in Oregon is Rhythm Traders, the greatest drum shop on the West Coast. They are based here in Portland. And if you go to rhythmtraders.com and let them know I sent you, they'll give you 10% off. Again, no sales tax. So if you're ordering outside the area, you're going to save a bunch of dough. And then if you really want to help and support this channel, this wonderful record store right here, the greatest vinyl shop on the planet, is Music Millennium. MusicMillennium.com will get you access to all the newest stuff and all vintage stuff. So a member of my next guest's band has plenty of retro vinyl. I'm sure that you can find at Music Millennium. So go to MusicMillennium.com. Let Terry Courier know that All Access Live sent you, and they would appreciate the support, as do I. If you want to make a contribution to the show, you can go to Kevy Metal at Venmo. So just at KEVYMETL and help contribute so that I can help support my guests by flying right here into my studio. They can play drums with me and guitar and all that good stuff. So I'm not asking for handouts. What I do want you to do is help sponsor or help support my next guest. I found out that Manic Merch, my friends out on the East Coast, Greg Ross and Manic Merch, represent Envy of None, which is the band that features my next guest. You might know her from Montana. You might know her from Oregon. And if you're a rabid Rush fan, then you've probably watched all of the goings on with Alex Lifeson between the disbanding of Rush and now Envy of None is this amazing new record. And it features the most incredible lead singer and captivating dynamic person, Maiah Wynne. Check it out. There she is in her studio. I'm switching places with you here, so you're atop your name here. MaiahWynne.com. I saw it. It's got everything. It's got your discography. It's got your musings, a little bit about your history as well. So I mentioned Montana and I mentioned Oregon. There are connections to both, right? So you grew up in Portland?
I grew up in Washington. I moved around a bit growing up, and I mostly grew up in Spokane, Washington, and then I lived in Montana for a few years, and now I'm in Portland. But it's all Northwest, you know.
So we could have actually done this episode right here in Portland, right? Because I'm just in Oregon City, south of you.
That's true. Yeah.
So, well, we share an area code, right? So at least I know that I'm within a handful of miles from you. And then you mentioned growing up in Spokane. I spent a ton of time up there in my travels from Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, on my young day tours. But you got to do some work with my buddy Rob McLean in Missoula, Montana. Is that right?
Yeah.
Were you doing a movie there, or what were you doing? Some music project?
Yeah. We've worked together on a few different things. You know, I lived in Montana, and we worked on, like, I actually used to wear butterfly wings a lot when I performed, and he helped me make some butterfly wings, and there's just some, we've known each other for a long time. He's a great guy, and he's really connected to the whole scene there, and it's a really small community. Yeah. So, you know, once you meet somebody, you're just sort of connected, and everybody there is just so welcoming. So I've known him for a long time through both the film and the music industry. But yeah, he's a great guy.
The most talented dude. I mean, honestly, we were in bands back in 1991. That'll tell you how far we go back. So, went to college together and toured the Northwest. My very first touring bands, and I love that guy, like family. So it sounds like you do too. And I'm glad he paired us. This is really cool. He actually told me about you before I knew anything about Envy of None. So I'm excited because having been sort of as a drummer, I have to know everything about, iconic classic rock bands like Rush, of course. So when I heard about Alex's new project, I took notice also, and you may not know this, but I play in a band from the 80s that bands that people might know. It's like A Flock of Seagulls is the band. Our guitarist was on the same label as Rush. Right? He knows Alex well, and he's just raved about what a human being Alex was, about how humble and down to earth. And so then when you came on my radar, I started listening to interviews with you and watching what Alex would say about you. And it's amazing to me. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. He's so humble, but he talked about this magical voice and your spirit and what a talent you were. Nothing about him, right? It's not the Alex Lifeson show. It's a band of collectives. And so between, Alex's endorsement of you and Rob McLean, I think, I feel like I already know you. And I've watched some podcasts. So everybody that I shared you with has all of a sudden, they fall in love with the Maiah Wynne that they did not yet know. So you talked about the butterfly wings. I heard that you described yourself as a wood nymph oftentimes.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm a little disappointed that you didn't show up in your butterfly wings today.
I have some. I have lots of butterfly wings around the house. You just really only walk 10 feet and you'll probably run into some butterfly wings here. So they're not far. They're not far away.
All right. Well, we'll feel the spirit. And if you guys are watching and you've got a good enough resolution on your camera, you'll probably notice that there's a keyboard in front of Maiah. There's a ton of instruments behind her, and I threw this at her last second, but I'm actually going to get her to play a little music later on. So this is going to be fun. If you don't mind me just going right into this, I was going to ask you a couple of questions about the formation. What I heard in the past is that you started off, I know you played piano first, right? And then you branched out in other instruments, and now you play like almost 20. Is that right?
Yeah, I play a lot of instruments. I really, it's like Alex would say the same thing. Once you play one stringed instrument, you can kind of, BS your way through a lot of stringed instruments. So it's kind of cheating, but I do play a lot of instruments.
It's not, you mentioned that there was sort of commonality between like the ukulele and mandolin and guitar, but I don't think I could jump from, say, playing drums to a lot of the stringed instruments. And I did hear you say that you're not a fan of woodwinds, right? Because you couldn't purse your lips and whistle.
Yeah, I can't whistle. That's my kryptonite.
All right. So between now and the time that you and I meet in person where we get to play some music, I'm going to work on, because I played clarinet first. That was my very first instrument until I realized that it was a really difficult thing to attract young ladies when I was a teenager, playing clarinet. Yeah. And then I saw guys playing drums and I said, oh my gosh, that moved me enough to switch. So away went my woodwinds. But between now and the time we meet, I'll work on my woodwind skills and maybe we can play some of our kryptonite, because we want to challenge ourselves with new stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to learn how to whistle.
Yeah, between now and then.
Yeah.
All right. You got to find like some of those iconic like Western themes and see if you can get those parts together. Oh, Heidi still thinks that clarinet's cool. I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, there are some folks in the chat here. Greg Ross from Manic Merch, who handles Envy of None, he's here. Good to see you, Greg.
Hey, Greg.
So if you missed this at the beginning, guys, go to manicmerch.com because you can pick up all this amazing Envy of None stuff. And then if you're lucky, you might even grab some Maiah Wynne stuff from him too. Before we even talk Envy of None, we're going to talk about your instrumentation. Growing up in Spokane, I know in Montana, there wasn't a lot to do creatively if you were, but did I hear that you're actually a graphic artist as well?
I doodle. I wouldn't call myself a graphic artist, certainly, but I can doodle for sure.
Do some of your sketches and doodles come out in like the artwork that you've put together for your album covers? Because you've got a new album coming out in September.
Yeah, I mean, early on, especially when I first started doing shows and I put my first CD together to sell at coffee shops, I drew the album cover for that, and it was like a girl in the woods, and there's trees and butterflies, of course.
Of course.
But I haven't done a lot since then. I think I've sort of been lucky since then to work with some really talented artists who are much more skilled than I am, and leveled up as far as graphic art goes. But I would like to get back into it. I think there's a lot to be said about people who can really do everything artistically and express, a visual viewpoint to their music, and it's really a really special thing. So I'd like to get better at it.
Yeah. Do you find inspiration from some of those guys? You mentioned the people that are what you said, that you mentioned that they're better than you. Who are some graphic artists that really stand out to you? Do you have anybody in particular that you just think, oh, I love their work?
Ooh, that's such a great question. I mean, there's some really, really talented artists out there. It's hard to say one for sure. I mean, if it counts as graphic art, I don't know, but there's this comic book artist, David Mack, who does these incredible paintings that are just so beautiful. And if I were to sort of hire somebody to do an album artwork for me, I would totally want to hire him because he's just so talented, and his artwork is amazing, and it's like watercolor mixed with, it's like mixed media stuff that's just really, really beautiful work. But yeah, that's what
David Mack. Right on. All right, David, you hear that?
Yeah.
Track down Maiah. I mentioned earlier too that Manic Merch was the place to get stuff. I was in error. It's actually Vision Merch. Manic is the family that sort of owns that, but visionmerch.com is where you can get all the merchandise. And perhaps as Maiah works on her graphic art, she can work with Vision Merch on designing some Envy of None stuff in the future.
I would love that.
Yeah, man. When I listened to conversations that you had in the past, you also mentioned that you're a dog person, that you've got an Aussie. Is that right?
Yeah, Australian Shepherd. Well, actually, no, Australian Cattle Dog. She's a
Okay.
sweetheart. She's just so full of energy, though.
Yeah.
Too much energy.
Well, you're if you grew up in sort of rural areas, right? That is what they do. I have a pug that just came out just before we went live, and my friends know Edgar Allan Pug has sort of become my soulmate during the pandemic. So, did you find during the last couple of years that you got closer to your cattle dog?
Oh, definitely. She's like a child to me now. It's probably weird. You'll see me walking around in some sort of like baby holster with her in it at some point, I'm sure. We're just connected at the hip. She's a sweetheart. But yeah, I think we've all gotten probably unhealthily close to our animals because we haven't been going out at all. We're
I don't.
just like
I don't think it's
official
unhealthy.
attacks.
Honestly, I think I got healthier because, I noticed that prior to the pandemic, the stuff that was really weighing on me was stuff that was way out of my control. The stuff that happens globally, whether it be political or whatever, it was killing me. Emotionally, I was a wreck. And I noticed that my dog could care less. When we're out and about, everything's right in front of him. He's so able to be present, and
Yeah.
and so I thought I really love that you could just be in the moment, sniff what's right there in front of you. You can go where you need to go to take care of things. And there's wisdom, that I got from my little pug. So I don't know that it's unhealthy. I think I grew from that point.
Yeah.
But a couple of things that you mentioned were that over the last couple of years, especially during the recording that you started doing with Andy and Alex, you got to know yourself better, that you went inside and you got to sort of process stuff that you'd gone through in the past. And if you're like me too, I got to do a lot of that work the last 2 years. The pandemic, while really difficult and negatively affecting a lot of people, it allowed me to find more of who I was. And, you don't have to go into detail with that, but I'd love for you to kind of describe a little bit about where that growth came from, the work that you got to do. And a lot of people are in the same position, and when I talk openly about it, it opened people up to be able to express that stuff. So if you want to talk a little bit about how you discovered that in yourself, you actually might inspire some other people to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, there's so much I feel like I went through a lot of emotional and personal growth through the last few years. I think within the pandemic parameters, I think a lot of people were spending more time with themselves and more time in a space where they could just sit with where they were in life. I think, a lot of people ended up quitting their jobs. A lot of people ended up changing career paths. A lot of people really took a moment to reevaluate their lives. A lot of relationships ended. A lot of people just took a moment. It created this stop in time, and everybody had a moment to really reflect on where they were and where they wanted to be and what was actually going on in their life at that point. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And a lot of our lives have been uprooted in different ways and changed because of these situations. And I think, a lot of it has been challenging and painful, but I think in a lot of ways there's been some really good changes as well, and really good changes in the paths that we've been walking on in our lives. And for me personally, I think, I had time to really evaluate the things I needed to do for my own mental health as well. I think I started going to a more intensive therapy to work through some really personal stuff and sort of evaluate how my entire life has sort of influenced who I am as a person today, and the decisions that I make, and the trauma responses that I have and am still working through, and how that all revolves around the music that I make and the music that I want to make and the messages that I want to put into the music and share with people and stories that I want to tell. And it all relates, people who create music and art of any sort know that your mental health and where you are in life, all of that influences the art that you create and the music that you create. And it's just all of everything that I've been through the past 5 years has been a huge sort of awakening for me as a person and shift for me into the things I truly value and the person that I want to be and the changes I want to make, the music I want to make, and the stories I want to tell. And it's all sort of wrapped into one giant confusing blob that I'm still working through and discovering and changing through. But it's all been amplified through the pandemic. I think it just really emphasized the importance to me of figuring out all of those pieces and aspects of myself and who I want to be and what I want to work toward in my life. And of course, being able to work on music with these guys and get their influence and wisdom and share in this collaboration with them has been such a huge influence on me as well, and my growth as a person and as a musician, and it's really enlightened me into the world of the music industry. Up until this point I've worked in the industry, but as a solo artist, as an independent artist, as somebody sort of on the outskirts of things, and this has really been a deep dive for me into the inner workings of a lot of the music industry, and especially the way that things used to be and how things are changing still. And it's really cool for me to be working with a record label. It's not something I ever really thought I'd get the chance to do. So being with a label, being with these guys who have been in the industry for so long and have so much experience, and it's been really amazing for me to get the chance to learn from them, to have the experience to grow in this process, and also grow personally in the process. And it's just been amazing, and I feel so lucky. And I feel like that was somehow still a really vague answer to everything that you asked. But
Well, you touched on a ton of stuff, right? I mean, number one, you mentioned therapy. A lot of people, thank God, the stigma of getting therapy is kind of going away, because man, I am, Skip Von Kusky, who is part of the Portland Cello Project, which I'm showcasing right here, has cello. He appreciates, so Skip as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, dear friend. I was just in Montana with him this weekend. Actually, I'm seeing an event they had in Lewistown, Montana. So I'm glad you're here, Skip. You must have a night off right now, or you're going on stage.
Yeah, actually, cool story about Skip. I have a song called Fearless Girl that Skip did cellos on, and Alex also played on that song. So it's sort of like a a through line there too.
I
between
told
all
you
of these musicians.
there are 6 degrees that separate us. Not even, actually, I think they were probably one degree apart. But anybody that you talk to, I think in the Northwest at least, has had some sort of interaction with Skip Von Kusky. So he was on my show about a month ago. I loved seeing him in Montana. This guy shows up in a smile in the middle of a snowstorm, this crazy blizzard. And the Portland Cello Project put on one of the most unbelievable shows I've ever seen in my life. It moved me in a way that, it's hard to describe, but we talked about therapy. Some people feel like therapy, is some sort of a sign of weakness, where we know for sure that I know for me, finding the right therapist and being able to talk through some of those blocks and the stuff that happened early on in my life really helped me elevate everything in my life, between relationships that I have and musician interactions and business and being a parent. It helps me a lot, even communicating here, as a podcaster. I think being able to understand boundaries and, you mentioned between going through therapy and processing some of that stuff, but then also having the wisdom of the guys that you're playing with currently. Yeah, these guys have had some incredible experience in the music industry, dating back since the 70s for sure. And you mentioned being a solo artist. So I'm going to touch on a couple of those things. The experience that you've had, right, as an independent songwriter and instrumentation, instrumentalist, vocalist, as an independent artist now, most of the sort of attention oftentimes is the hell with a label, right? There's no need to have a label anymore. I'm going to go off and do it on my own. The DIY thing is a big part of being a solo artist. Now, you're in a position, right, where you've worked with guys that have had labels dating back to the early 70s. And I know that, and my band as well, right? My band, they think their first album came out in 79 when they had a first opportunity to break. And talking to them about the music industry is completely different now. When you say, well, there's a lot you can do with DIY between streaming and all these kind of opportunities to play and generate a community online without the use of a label. So I'm curious, the input that the guys, so I know, Andy, of course, from Coney Hatch and Alex Lifeson from Rush have come together and created Envy of One, from what I've heard, based on some work that they threw out. They wanted to hear how particular musicians might respond to some of the music. And I think Shadow was like the first song that Alex heard you sing. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. No surprise to me at all that what he heard, turned into this collaboration that if you guys haven't heard this Envy of None record, it's hauntingly beautiful, right? It really is. It's atmospheric. The new video, is spooky and kind of dark, but the record, I especially between Portland and Montana, it was this endless, perfect drive soundtrack, and there's a lot of depth in it. I'm curious to know about your interaction with them, talking about using a label or having a label that represents you guys. What's their take on it? Do they feel like you need to have a label in order to generate attention from a global audience, or what's the attempt, at least with the label and Envy of None?
Yeah, I mean, we after we had about 10 songs done, those guys obviously have a lot of connections, and we decided to sort of shop it around and try to find a label, because that is the world that they came from. And I wasn't sure at that point, because I'd never had an interaction with a label before. And I've heard horror stories and the independent artist mindset of like, never sign with a label. And so I was really curious to see what that world was like. And I completely trusted them to sort of pick the label that we were going to go with. And there was a few different ones that were interested, and some really big ones as well. And we decided to go with KEXP, even though they weren't like the biggest label out there, but they're a good label, they're a big label, but they're also really invested. And I have to say that they've really changed my perspective on how a label can really affect your career and really do good things for you. I think there's a lot to be said about the work that they've put in, especially Sarah, who's head of PR and marketing, and she's been really getting us a lot of interviews and features all across the world, and people who are interested in interviewing and getting our name out there. And There's just so many incredible people at the label, and Greg here, and just so many amazing people who are working behind the scenes. And it takes a village. It really does. And they're working their asses off, and they're doing so many things that I'm not even aware of, just to get vinyl printed, to get CDs printed and merch done, and designing the whole record label. Beach, who designed the album cover and artwork and everything, all of the pieces and threads that make it possible. And it's just like, after years of trying to do all of those things with just the small independent team that I have, just with me and my co-producer and my friendager is what we call her, because she's my close friend who does a lot of managerial stuff for me. But
Is that Heidi?
Yeah, that's Heidi.
Nice.
She's great.
Friendager. I like that.
Yeah. And she's amazing. She works her ass off too, but it's just like, you can only do so many things without connections and with just 3 people, and we work really hard, and we do a lot of work for 3 people, but seeing just the possibilities open up when you have a full team of people with those connections and that experience, and knowing how all of those steps work, it takes a huge load off. And it's so amazing to see how hard they're working and how invested they are. And I'm so grateful for the team at KEXP, like incredibly grateful. They're just so amazing, and it's really changed my perspective on labels and they do a lot of work. And it's easy to sort of rag on labels, and I obviously I can't speak to every experience with a label.
Sure.
I'm sure each one is different, and of course, once a lot of money gets involved, people get weird, and that's a thing. But from my perspective, from independent small artist to seeing a pretty big label doing all of those jobs and doing all of that work, it's just like, wow, this is amazing. I feel so spoiled, and like, yes, please do all this work and help us in all these ways. And you're doing amazing. Great job. I love you all. Thank you. And I'm going to take a nap now, and it's just
oh man, asking for help, number one, is really hard. Most people that are outside the industry would never have any clue, right? How many different sort of facets it takes to make a band really blow up, and to get access to a different audience, right? I mean, growing up or working at least in Portland as an independent artist, you can continue to play the same venues, and you can work on a mailing list and work social media and have your community grow at a small grassroots level. Getting KEXP, out there where they can show what a label should do, could and should do. I mean, we've heard the horror stories, and a lot of it comes from, wanting bigger pieces of the pie from people that have no vested interest in your growth or your creative space. They just want somebody that's marketable, that they can go out and make a ton of money off of. And so, kudos to KEXP and for the team that you've got assembled. It's great that you acknowledge them. As independent artists go, a lot of people that have maybe had an opinion about the way labels are, they've been burned in the past, or they've heard their horror stories,
Totally. And I'm sure that definitely does happen. I think we really hit the jackpot in getting a label that cared about us, that let us remain creatively in control of things. They didn't push us one way or the other. They let us make our own creative choices and decisions. They really supported us from the get-go. They were excited about the project, and they're putting a lot of energy behind it. And that's like such an ideal situation. I feel so lucky and fortunate. And these guys, Andy and Alex and Alf really, they picked a really good label for us, I think. And it's just such a perfect fit. And these guys are just so amazing. I feel very fortunate. And I would... It'd be a dream to find another situation like that for my own solo career too. But it's like, you got to find the right pick for sure, because if they're not invested in you, if they're not investing time and energy into you, then it's not worth the trade-off for sure. But
it's all a transaction, right? Okay, you said lucky again, so I'm glad you caught that, because I've heard you in the past not correct yourself, but also throw in fortunate. And it's something I say a lot on my show, and I really believe this in my life, that I used to consider myself the luckiest guy on the planet. For all sorts of reasons, right? I've had so many opportunities come my way that I never want to take for granted. And somebody corrected me and said, if it were truly luck, then you wouldn't have earned it. You wouldn't have put yourself in a position where those opportunities would come up. being fortunate is that, yeah, you can reap the benefits from putting yourself in that place. You were ready, Maya. If you hadn't done all of that work and you hadn't really worked on who you were, chances are Alex and Andy, you mentioned Alf too. Is that the drummer of the group?
He's really the unsung hero here.
Okay.
He's a huge part of the music. He's our fourth, band member, and he played everything from guitars to he did drum tracks, but
Okay.
he did he synthesized tracks, so he did a lot of programmed drums. He didn't play drums, but he did a lot of synth pieces and keys, and wrote a lot of the initial tracks with Andy. Co-writer, producer, engineer, he mixed a lot of
Wow.
the songs. He did so much work on these tracks, and I feel bad because he's so sweet, and he's just like, he doesn't care about being in the limelight at all. He's just like along for the ride, and he's such a kind and humble person, but he did so much work on this record and deserves all the praise in the world.
What's Alf's last name?
Anna Bellini.
Okay, Alf Annabellini. You mentioned humble again too, and the kindness in this industry. It's amazing to me how many people you run into that don't have the humility, right? When I hear Alex talk about you that way, and just how important it is for your personality to have worked in this band. Anybody that is a musician knows that if you really want to do music as a career and you want to do it as an ensemble, you have to go way beyond practice and learning the chops of your instrument. That communication and camaraderie is such a huge component, right? Everything that I've heard about every member now after hearing about Alf is that there's humility, that there's compromise, that there's a sharing of creativity. When I heard about Alex listening to your performance on Shadow and how he said, wow, that voice is what I want to work with. Every time you hear him talk about the new record, he'll say, this is all her. This is her. This is what she does. When you got that reverence, from somebody else in the group, that the edification about each other's, capabilities, it's so refreshing to me when I see that in a band. Having toured and played in bands my entire life, I can count on one or two fingers of one hand how many times that's happened to me in a band environment. And so I would imagine you as a solo artist going into a project like this, maybe, you may have a skewed opinion about how bands are. I'm sure you probably know, right? That it's a lot more difficult to find a great group of people like that. And so
Yeah.
I would not say you're lucky. I would say you're fortunate. You put yourself there in that position.
Yeah, Alex is just he's so kind, and I feel so fortunate that he
Mm.
is so supportive of me, and he really does just lift me up, and it's been so amazing to have that support, and to know that he really does. I don't know. He really, really likes my voice and my music,
Yeah.
and the contributions that I create, and that value that he places in me makes me feel so, I guess, respected and valued, and just like a real part of this group. I know I'm younger and less experienced, and that I think that could be really challenging in a lot of other situations. But I feel like an equal part of this group because of that kind of mentality, because of Alex, and that sort of just, he goes out of his way to really show that support for me. And I value that so much, and recognize that, it really is amazing. And I look up to him so much, and he's just an amazing person. And his contributions to this record are just so beautiful and incredible, and he brought all of these songs just to a whole other level. So it's just been so wonderful to work with him.
Yeah, I love hearing it. There's again no surprise. Our guitarist Gord Depp from Spoons, they were on the same label since really I think '81, and so having this Canadian influence. He mentioned it's really really cool that He's this Canadian guitarist playing in a band full of Americans. It's neat to see you out there, this American, playing this group of Canadians with, the Coney Hatch connection. And I don't know if Alf is Canadian as well, but I'm
Yeah,
betting
he
he is. I was going to
is.
say, because I will tell you, my Canadian family up there, I really do feel like I'm a sort of an honorary Canadian. Do a ton of shows up there. The Torontonians and the British Columbians, these guys that we've gotten to know over the years have sort of adopted me as family. And on many occasions, I've looked at, well, should I marry into citizenship?
Yeah.
But it's a nice sort of irony that he mentioned, and he's always said that if Alex were not a guitarist in Rush, if he was never this iconic guitarist, he's the guy that you'd want to hang out with on the weekend, grabbing dinner together or going out and just hanging, because he doesn't take himself seriously. He's very funny. You've seen so many, times where he really can find humor in a place that might not really, warrant, humor and bring some levity to it. So that brings me to the question that I hadn't heard yet answered. What's the plan? Are you guys going to tour Envy of None?
That is a great question. Also, thank you, Dorothy and David and Mom.
Oh, is Mom on here?
Mom's on here.
Which one's?
Shannon is my mom.
Hi, Shannon. Well, it's nice to see you here. Is she in Spokane?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Shannon, go Cougs. I guess I say the Zags, right? That's
Zags, yeah.
The Zags. Sorry. Thank you guys for being here. So touring is Envy of None planning a tour?
I just talked to Andy on the phone about it. That's really funny. About an hour ago, and we talked about there's a lot of inquiries, and we do have I think an agency sort of representing us for live shows now. And so it definitely looks like a possibility. I don't think we'll ever do any big sort of tours, especially Alex and Andy, because, they've spent most of their life touring, and
Right.
you know how grueling that can be. And
Yeah.
and yeah. and I completely understand that. But I do think there's a good chance we'll do a few shows or like special one-off things, or maybe like a tour where I do a bunch of shows and then they join me and we'll do Envy of None shows for like just the big cities. Or we've talked about a lot of different ideas we've been throwing out there, and I do think there's a really good chance we'll do at least a few special shows. And it would be so fun to see these songs in a live setting. Like,
Oh, yeah.
everything's been digital, so it's really exciting for me to see what that would be like in that kind of situation, and bring other musicians on and hear those songs in a new way. It would be so cool.
I like the idea of Envy of None opening up a Maiah Wynne set. I think that's a really good touring idea. Yeah. Folks, if you're watching this live right now, not just listening, you may notice that I changed the background here only because there was a note here from Greg Ross saying, I should ask you about the stuff that Envy of None's doing to support the folks of Ukraine. And so I've got the Ukrainian flag back here representing, our support and what's happening. Can you tell me what you guys have happening to support them?
Absolutely. I feel so fortunate to be working with such an incredible group of people that is so willing and ready to do what we can to help. And we've had some amazing people jump on board this idea. It just started with a little idea that I had after doing an interview with Alex, actually. And we were both just feeling really, really upset about what was happening and wishing we could do more to help. And I'm always a big fan of using music and music that I've created to try to make a difference or support organizations who are doing amazing work. And so I brought that up as an idea, especially for our song Enemy, because it's so topical to the situation. Right. And everybody jumped on board, Alex especially, and Andy really rallied behind it and got everybody else involved. And we have some amazing people who donated all of the vinyl and the printing services for that, and just such incredible people at the label too, and everybody's jumped on board so that 100% of the profits can go to the UNHCR, I believe.
Do you have it on your Maiah Wynne website?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
UNHCR, and they're helping refugees at this
Okay.
time. And their work is really amazing because they're out there, giving direct aid to refugees. And with, I think it's over, 5 million people who have been displaced already.
Wow. Yeah.
It's such a huge, immediate way that we can help. And the organization is doing such incredible work to support people who have been displaced and get them immediate aid and food and shelter. And it's so needed right now in this situation.
You know, that's the thing. I've talked about this in some episodes past about what we can do, right? I mean, this is incredible to me that just on my way to England last month, I was on tour. I went from Portland to Portland, Seattle, Seattle to Paris, Paris to Manchester, from Seattle to to Paris. This huge group of soldiers jumped on the plane in fatigues, and they had this huge rucksacks. And I thought, okay, well, they're in Marine gear. Are you guys over, to go help civilians? What's the deal? And this guy across the row said, we all work at Boeing. We're all, we've left the service. So we've completed our campaigns. We're, not active duty anymore, but we got reprieve from our jobs at the Boeing plant to leave our families and go and help civilians in Ukraine. This huge group, like their entire division, went over there, and
Wow.
they're not Ukrainian. They were there because they saw that a huge need was there for outside help. And I was floored. I mean, talk about heroic. And
Yeah.
then I got to our show. The first show that we did was in Wales. The venue that we played in Cardiff, the venue owner had blocked out a night where he was bringing over a Ukrainian band that was a prominent Ukrainian band to play just for the refugees that they had housed there in England. And I thought, it's so nice to see people, extending themselves and getting outside their own circle, right? I mean, we all are talk about fortunate, right? That we happen to have had the dice rolled be in a safe place right now where our families are okay. And for you guys to be able to use your voice and use the channels that you can to do whatever you can, I think it's great. Folks, if you want to know more about their support, do go to maiahwynne.com. You can see the spelling down below, and please go to her website and find out what you can do to help support that. Go buy a copy of Enemy. I'm sure you can get it at Vision Merch. I think the more we can do, the more awareness that we can raise, the better, for sure. And
Yeah.
I
And
applaud you.
yeah, the Envy of None website also has the 7-inch for sale, which you can, I think there's a limited amount of signed editions available still.
Yeah.
They're almost out. I think we added a few more because they sold out so quickly. But if you go, there's still a few left right now, I think. And there's these limited edition 7-inch vinyls that are blue and yellow for our support for Ukraine. And they're really beautiful, and such an amazing group of people worked really hard to get these out there so quickly and ready to go. And like I said, all of the profits are going to be donated to the UNHCR. Thank you, Greg,
Look
for
at
all of
that.
that information. And yeah,
Over
you.
$80,000 raised so far. That's unbelievable. I talked to a lot of musician friends of mine about legacy. Most of what we're doing right now, you and I have not met in person ever, but a lot of my friends that we travel together, either through package tours, they become family reunions, in a way. And so we're hanging backstage and we get to talk about real stuff. We're not talking about catering or anything like that. We'll be talking about what's going on globally or, in our nation. This opportunity that we've got right now is really, it's exciting to hear that you're using your voice in a positive way. How important is legacy to you?
I guess that's a really interesting question. It's funny because I feel like legacy it's such an intriguing concept of time, right? How do you create a legacy that matters? And does it really matter when you're gone? I feel like it does. I mean, like, it's that same kind of question. It's interesting to me to think about it and to think about what people will perceive of me years from now, and years and years and years from now, if I will still even be perceived at all. And it's I think what I've concluded, at least at this point in my life, is that the most important thing is just that what I'm doing right now with the time that I do have, and that I'm doing what I can to make a positive impact in the world is what is most important. And it's less important, I think, for me to have a legacy than it is for me to know that I created art that mattered to me and made a difference in some way, and that I connected with people in the time that I had and enjoyed what I had and valued it and did what I could. I think there's also so much pressure to create a legacy when you're a musician or an artist or a person in a complex career path. I think there's so much pressure to do well and succeed and make an impact, and we are all just, we're meat with electricity. That's what people say, we're just
Meat with electricity. Yeah.
We are one little being out of billions. And if we can look at the life that we've lived and know that we cared and that we tried and that we got up and did our best and connected with other people and empathized and loved and did more good than harm, then I think that's a success.
Absolutely. Yeah. There could be, a misconstrued sort of notion about legacy. When I talked about that, it sounds pretentious in some ways, right? Because you feel like, that you have to feel like you're better than, but there's this quote, my favorite quote, Jim Carrey, the comedian, had talked to this huge group of marketing students. And, the idea behind marketing, right, is just to sort of entice people to want to consume. And I love that he talked to these graduating students about the effect you have on others is the greatest form of currency there is. And that, to me, that really hit home, especially somebody who is this celebrity and, making millions of dollars in movies and can influence people in a lot of ways. For them to hear that impact is so critical, right? That the effect you have on others really ties up what you just mentioned, that it matters, in order to be a community, a global community where we can all respect and treat each other with kindness and love. At the end of the day, that's all we could sort of hope for, or at least what I could hope for. And, when I hear that about your bandmates, I would imagine that if I were to ask Alex, tell me what matters to you when you're gone. Things about like legacy changes, I think, for me, once I had children, I have two boys, a 20 and a 22-year-old, and they both know that I am less concerned with, making millions of dollars and having a big house or anything like that. I just really want to be a steward of the planet. I want to make the planet better. And just like you mentioned, leaving this place better than when we got here. Your mom must be so tremendously proud. I'm sure your parents are, they see what you're doing, not just having success in music, but you're making an impact. To hear those words come out of your mouth is a beautiful thing to hear from your child. And so I would imagine that, Shannon's probably, like getting goosebumps hearing you because she knows that's the way you are anyway. I've heard interviews. I hear that this is not rhetoric for you. This is definitely the way you live your life.
Yeah. I feel like I feel very, I know this is the theme of this interview so far is how fortunate we both feel, but it's it's an important thing. I feel very fortunate to be able to live a life right now where I can think about the kind of impact I have, and I have a roof over my head. I live safely. I am able to pursue a career in music and pursue dreams and think about the impact I have in the world, and that in itself is such a privilege to be able to live a life like that, and I'm so aware of that, especially right now in this state of the world and how many people are struggling all the time, and have that's always been the case, and I think we talk about the industry and legacy, and it's true that it's a privilege to be able to have a legacy at all in this kind of industry, and to be able to think about those things and pursue those dreams, and I really do. I have my parents to thank for their support growing up too, and just the luck of being born in a situation and in a family and a life where I could make those choices and have the opportunities to work towards those dreams. And, I think about that all the time. And I don't know, I feel like we are all just one big group of people, and we feel so separate from each other sometimes, but I think we're all so similar. We're probably all coming from the same place in the universe.
Yeah.
And we're all just born in different places in different times in different worlds, and we have to work through different things. And I'm the older I get, the more aware I am at how very, very fortunate and privileged I am to be able to have a life where I can pursue dreams that I have. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for this path that I'm on. And I just want to do what I can to support other people and take what I have and give back where I can and make a positive difference. And that's just, it's the least I can do given the fortune that I have in this.
You are doing it. One thing I've heard from you in the past was the amount of adversity that you've overcome and the tenacity, right? So we all know artists, creative types, musicians that have just struggled their entire lives, and they may be so gifted, so talented, but for whatever reason, they don't get the opportunities, right? And some of that is, the left brain, right brain conversation you can have about whether, you're very creative, but you're not at all sort of driven marketing wise. And so you don't know how to get your art in front of those people. You don't know how to expose people to that. You, in your past, I've heard about you submitted songwriting to different contests, and you would win some and you'd lose some, and you would lose more than you'd win. And so, this is very poignant in this time right now where people are having to struggle in all sorts of fields. But you talk about having an impact, and I think a lot of people could benefit from hearing about, you fall down 100 times and then you get up that one time and you stand taller than you ever did. The songwriting contest is what led you to Envy of None. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. And I have so much to say about that too, because with contests, and there's a lot of opportunities for artists where you can submit your art or your work, and they'll give you critiques and stuff. And I can't tell you how many times I've submitted the same song to hundreds of different platforms, and I'll get, a lot of conflicting feedback from people. Somebody says they hate the drums. Somebody else says they love the drums. Somebody says your voice is too soft. Somebody else says your voice is perfect. I love it just the way that it is. And you get all different kinds of feedback and conflicting feedback. And some people hate what you give them. And then later on, that same song, no changes, ends up winning a contest, And it's just like, it's right timing. It's continuing to try, even though, especially with, careers in art, people can be so cruel. And you have to, it's a cliche, but you really do have to build a tough skin. But you also have to remain vulnerable if you're creating art. It is a vulnerable thing. You can't ever really harden yourself, because that's just the nature of being a human being. Sure. And it's always gonna hurt a little bit. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It hurts all the time, the negative feedback, the negative comments. And you can't avoid it in this day and age. You really can't. But if you keep trying and you believe in what you're doing and you love the things that you're making, and you just keep going and you keep getting back up and trying again and trying again, eventually something's going to go through. You're going to find your people. Like I said, there's 7 billion people on this planet. Right. You're going to find your people eventually. You're going to find the people that resonate with the art that you're making. There's no wrong way to make art. There's no wrong way to make music. There's no right, song to make. There's no, it's all arbitrary. It's all opinions. It's just whatever you enjoy making, make that, create that, love what you do, keep trying, and eventually you're going to find your people. You're going to find your audience, and you're going to make a breakthrough, and you're going to connect with people. And just don't give up on yourself. That's what I have to say about that.
I love it. I mean, the perfect feedback, and not compromising your values. And that's another thing too. I had heard some conversations that you'd had in the past about saying that for a while you looked at sort of crafting your music a little differently to sort of appease, the critiques and some of the songwriting contests or the criteria. And I would imagine now some of the wisdom, you've had from being able to look back and recognize that the true Maiah Wynne, the person that, you put yourself out there being vulnerable, but exposing, the creative sense that can be appreciated by the right people, right? By the right audience. And by that, I mean people that get you, not the people that have the dollars behind them or anything like that. But, as a drummer, I could, I've asked people ask me all the time, you're like, who's the greatest drummer on the planet, right? And there are a lot of Neil Peart comments, right? And I'm sure people watching this that are looking for Alex Lifeson and dirt are going to say, well, of course, Neil is the greatest drummer. To me, that's like asking, which is a better painter, Picasso or Rembrandt. I mean, there's completely different musicians or artists or graphical artists or actors, and when you see people getting these awards for being, best actor, and I'm thinking, well, okay, you've got 4 or 5 different people up there that are incredible actors. Mm-hmm. Who's to say one's better than another? Well, there's a best performance, I guess, or a performance that resonated with more people. But to me, you could list your top 3 most inspiring vocalists. And I would want to go out and listen to those, not because you've told me that they were the best singers. If I asked you, who's the greatest singer on the planet, your idea and my idea and 7 billion other people would kind of have that same opinion. But I'm more interested in people that have resonated with you, that have touched you and inspired you. What was the last singer that you listened to that made you cry?
Actually, I have an answer for that. I just listened to Ash. She has an album that she just released, and I hadn't heard of her before. I just stumbled across some of her stuff online, and it was really just, it hit me right in that spot, and I definitely cried. I just cried the other day listening to her record, and it's just really beautiful stuff. I would say, yeah. Ash.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid at all to admit. I mean, when music can move me that far, to cry, that's what it's all about. My favorite singer on the planet happens to be there from Spokane as well, too. So Miles Kennedy is someone that I've gotten to know over the years, and we met in '95 and played a lot of gigs together. And I'm really proud and happy to see the success he's had. But in his early days, songs that he would write when we played gigs together, I'm sitting there sobbing behind my drum kit. It's really, it's kind of embarrassing to be on stage doing that. But you know what, man, it's I feel blessed.
I love those moments, though.
Me too. Those are the goosebumps, right?
Yeah, I've had a couple times where my cellist, one of the amazing cellists that I've worked with, Bethany Joyce, and we did this cover of If We Were Vampires, and we cried every single time we practiced it. And then, of course, during the show, we were just tearing up and crying through it as well. It's just such a touching song, and that getting to perform that with her after years and years of playing with her, and it's just such a sentimental thing. And there's, something so pure about a moment like that with people that you love and people that you're creating music with. It's just such a special thing. So I love it. I love crying.
Beautiful. Yeah, me too. It doesn't mean that your heart's breaking at that point. But,
no.
we mentioned Skip Von Kuski. The other day, the event that I emceed with the Portland Cello Project was their tribute to Prince, who passed away 6 years ago today. My all-time favorite artist on the planet, and it affected me more than I ever imagined that it would when he passed. But when the Cello Project played Beautiful Ones, I think one of the greatest ballads of all time, I'm in a sort of an airplane hangar in Lewistown, Montana, in front of a lot of cowboys sobbing. It got me. And Skip came up to me afterwards and said, "That was the one that got you, wasn't it? The Beautiful Ones got you." And it's I'm really so happy that music can move me that way. To goosebumps, to laughter, to just tremendous joy. Being on stage, when you get that goosebump moment, whether it makes you cry or just, it's hard to explain, right? The euphoric rush that you get when you hit that thing, and sorry, Shannon, but it's sort of orgasmic, right? There's something that hits you, and you can't explain it to somebody that's not had it, right? I don't know how to explain it.
It is. It's especially, I'm definitely one of those people that gets chills listening to music all the time. Just full body, down the head and spine and arms. And some people don't have that response. It's just the physical difference in people's anatomy, and some people don't have a chill response to things, and I definitely have that response, and it's hard to describe to people, but I feel like it's like this weird skin braingasm.
Yeah, that's right. Like dopamine rush, you get all the endorphins and everything. That, to me, that's what kept me going back, overcoming all the stuff where, I'm sick of moving my drums. I'm sick of the late night hauls. I'm sick of the long road trips and getting ripped off for money or whatever, stuff in the past. That braingasm was what actually kept me coming back. I will chase that till the day I die. If I can, whatever, just disappear into a cloud of dust on stage after my last braingasm, then,
Right.
then I win, but it's cool to talk to other musicians who get it, and if you guys are out there and you're interested in playing music, hopefully you get to that point and seek other people that help you obtain that, really. There was a songwriter I played with here in Portland, my first sort of label band, called On Alama. The songwriter was Leah Kruger. She's the greatest songwriter I've ever worked with. And there were so many moments where looking around the room and watching people burst into tears on songs that she would sing, and knowing about, like, she had that kind of magnetic attraction that would have them instantly fall in love with her. They'd come to me saying, how do I spend the rest of my life with that woman? Not because they were physically attracted. It was just like what she did to them,
Right.
And I mean, have you had that kind of response where people come up to you and they're gushing? They're like, oh my gosh, Maiah Wynne, like, take me home, please.
Yeah. I have. And you have those connections with people, especially I think in a live setting when you're performing, it's such an intimate thing, especially when you're doing an emotional song and you're connecting with those emotions, and, and I like making eye contact with people as a performer on stage. I like looking at people and not in, hopefully in an intense or uncomfortable way, but
Sure.
a nice amount of eye contact and making people feel seen and connect with people, and it's kind of a magical thing, and when it's something that you deeply connect with on an emotional level too, it's really powerful, and to feel seen, to feel understood, to connect. And we miss a lot of that in our world today. There's not a
Right.
lot of opportunities to connect in such a profound and emotional way. We are so disconnected, and especially in person, sitting in a concert. And I remember I had that, like, the first concert I went to was Death Cab for Cutie. And I remember, like, it's just like this amazing, like, I wanted to have that connection with them on stage. And then later on I went to a Macklemore concert with my best friend in high school, and even though we were like way back in the stadium, I was like, I'm connecting with Macklemore right now, we're having a connection. I think he can feel me, I'm sure he can, but like you feel that when you're in the audience, and you connect with people, and you think, oh my gosh, did they just look at me? Did they see me? Are we, I feel this connection right now. And it's so true. It's palpable. It's you sharing this emotion with sometimes hundreds or thousands of people in a space, and you're connecting in such a deep way, and it's really magical. And then it's interesting to be on the other side of that sometimes. I do a show, and then I have people come up to me and talk to me about having this profound reaction to a song that I did, and wanting to tell me about it, wanting to tell me about that connection that they felt. And that's really special for me to be on the other side of that, and for that moment to be full circle for me is really magical. And I really love those moments with people, and getting to connect and just have those real moments, and give people hugs, and just interact in such a genuine way. It's really special.
You're a hugger. I am too. And truthfully, I mean, the relationship or the communication you have on stage, just like you mentioned, I've tried to explain that to people too, that there really is a palpable connection that's way beyond just hearing your voice and interpreting vocals or lyrics. As I saw here in the chat, Melinda Hall, dear friend of mine, she
Mm.
waved here. Melinda is one of the most incredible supporters of me musically and my band. She's been all over really all over North America, following us, and she is a champ. This girl is going through major cancer treatment right now, and she still has gone to all these shows. And I know she's talked about this connection that you've talked about, where this is what it's all about. If we don't have that connection with people, then what is it all for? It really, a lot of musicians unfortunately take it for granted. And I'm glad to hear you mention that you receive it, that you give it. And I think therapeutic wise, music is the best medicine for sure. And I think it's a perfect time, if you don't mind me putting you on that spot, with all of those instruments there, and just knowing that you have this gift. Do you mind sharing a little musical therapy with us and
Not
giving
at
this to Maiah
all.
Wynne?
I will warn you, it's been a long time since I've done an actual performance.
So this is a special opportunity, and you're a lefty.
I'm not. I think it's just reversed.
Oh, the camera, gotcha.
It's
Okay,
tricking you. It's lying
yes,
to you.
yeah. Well, the camera.
My dad is a lefty, though.
Is he?
I could
All
have
right.
been a lefty.
I'm not a lefty, but my dad is as well. So cheers to the lefties. Yeah. What are we gonna hear you play?
I think I'm gonna do a song called "Come On" that I wrote when I was 16.
16. All right. I'm going to disappear from the camera so that people can get a full screen here. And oh, Melinda, I'm sorry you're battling this right now. I'm so grateful you're here, because this is a great opportunity for you to hear an angelic voice, and really one of the most incredible humans that I feel fortunate to get to discover here. So we're going to hear from Maiah Wynne. And folks, if you've not yet done this, make sure you go to maiahwynne.com and you can find more of this. So
Yeah.
take it.
Are you hearing the guitar?
Yes, ma'am. Is that an SM7B?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, of course. That picks up nicely.
Awesome. All right. This is a song called "Come On," and thanks for listening. I waited for you on the outskirts of town. I'm flying away. Don't know where I'm going now. Oh, come on. It's time to run. Oh, come on. It's time to run. And here we are again, fighting demons in our heads, raging war against our skin, fighting the life we're living in. Oh, come on. It's time to run. Oh, come on. It's time to run.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I'm sure that everybody watching this just fell in love with Maiah Wynne's voice. My gifted Hip Hop Son just said most amazing voice ever. Yes, Caleb.
Aw.
I told you. um,
Thank you.
I think. Wow, I've got some tears myself. You know, I saw that you got some fans there that talked about some of the different songs that they wished you'd play. I'm curious to know, because of the support you've got from like Andy and Alf and Alex, when you go out and you're doing Envy of None rehearsals, when you guys go out and have you spent some time where you just have like you block out a weekend and you just say, all right, we're going to start from scratch. Let's just throw some ideas together. Have you been in that environment?
You know, I really haven't done that much. I feel like I've mostly done songwriting on my own and in my own sort of space. And with Envy of None, it's sort of we were all doing our pieces and recording our own parts in our own spaces as well. So I
Yeah.
haven't really had the opportunity to like, and I've done some sort of jam sessions with friends and musicians and stuff where we're just playing in a room together,
Yeah.
and that's really fun. I am not married,
Uh, Caleb,
but
the reason I ask you that about Envy of None, because it's a unique environment that you're in with that band, right? So, pre-COVID bands, I mean, that's sort of the idea about getting the band together in the garage, right? And so you're laying down basic tracks, and um, the idea that you guys would be writing individual parts, sending each other, Logic or Pro Tools, mixes, and collaborating in a separate environment. I would bet if Andy and Alex and Alf were to sit there and watch you do what you just did, the direction of Envy of None would just take on a whole new complexity. I could
mm,
see that if it were me and I was in your band and I just saw you do that for the first time, I think I would lose my mind. I'm thinking,
mm,
what are we doing? Right? I mean, this is, and that's by no means to say anything about Envy of None. I love that record. In fact, the really cool thing I love about it, friends of mine that are Rush fans that listen to it and they say, wow, it's so unique. It's nothing like Alex had ever done. Well, good for him, right? I mean, that's so cool for him to recognize and be able to express himself in a different way. But you can hear that it's influenced by all of you guys for sure. And there's such beauty in those songs, and even the songs, there's some coy humor, and there's some darkness, like Spy House. I think I love it. It's so awesome.
yeah.
I love that song. It's probably my favorite song.
Oh wow, I love that. That one
Yeah,
was a challenge. It was really weird and strange, and it was fun to work on that one. So I'm so happy you like it because for a while I struggled with it, trying to like come up with the right part for it. So, thank you.
well, from what I heard, right? I mean, a lot of these, like somebody would provide you with a riff, or the melody, and then you're writing lyrics around it or bringing your own adaptation to the melody, right?
Yeah.
This is just what I've heard from other interviews, because I wanted to know from all the different connections that we had, the different people like Rob McLean and again, Gord with the spoons and Alex and the music, the Montana, the Oregon connection. I thought there's something about, I don't know, the air that we share, that sort of makes. Boy, I'm rambling about this. When I was in Montana, I was thinking there's something strange about the air here that's like no place else. Even if you're down in the Rockies, someplace else, people in Montana have a certain sort of air about them. Whether there's a different political space or whatever, but there's everybody waves. Everybody waves at each other when you
hmm
drive down the street. And I started doing that in Portland, and it freaks people out. They're like, "What is?" And
Oh
then
yeah.
and the hugging. I'm a hugger, right? So I hug everybody, and sometimes people are like, "What's up with this dude, man? Back
Yeah.
off." But there's the synergy that I feel around certain people from different areas or maybe in creative spaces, and I see that right with Alex and really and Andy, and now Alf. I would imagine that in a room for a weekend, if you were to bring your guitar and do Come On, then I would imagine that it would sort of open Envy of None up to a whole different songwriting process in round two. album number 2, where we're no longer going to do this in separate spots. We have to do this, somewhere in a cabin in Ontario.
Yeah. I would love that. That would be so fun. Just hang out and write songs together and just have a fun time. That would be really nice. Honestly, I would love that.
Yeah, well, propose that. If you decide to do that, you can say, yeah, some crazy drummer in Portland said that this is how we ought to do it. But for your stuff, one thing I heard is that you wanted to release your record. You said it has to come out by September.
Yeah.
What's the urgency of that?
I'm doing a little bit of a tour starting in September. Heidi's been working really hard on booking me shows. I'm doing a lot of private house shows and going across the country. And I really want to have my album ready to sell at those shows and to promote it. But I also it's something I've been wanting to release for years now. And a lot of people don't know, but I've written over 200 songs. And I have so many songs, and I've prioritized a lot of other sort of projects and sort of one-off things that I did, like writing songs for different films and which is really exciting and fun for me, and I love doing it. And I did a song for this collaboration to help raise funds to protect the oceans and clean the oceans, and that was really amazing too. But I've done all of these sort of one-off songs and projects for specific things that aren't a perfect representation of me as an artist and all of the dynamics that make me the musician that I am. And so I'm really excited after years of doing this to finally have an album that feels like this is Maiah Wynne. This is me. This is my heart. These are the stories I want to tell, circling back to that first sort of question you asked of how have I grown as a person, and that all circles back to this moment too of I feel almost desperate to finish this album. I feel this sense of urgency and that this is something that is so important to me and the legacy that I want to make and the stories I want to tell and the importance of what I want to put out into this world. Like, I would be so sad if I died tomorrow and I didn't have this album out.
Would you be sad? Would you know? No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
I would be sad. I would come back as a ghost and tell everybody how sad I was about it. That's how important it is to me.
That, I believe that. I mean, that is what you're here to do, right? To communicate that way. I bet Caleb, who, my son is here, he can relate, right? He's trying to get his record out too in the next month, and he's got releases in the past, but there's something that he really wants to be able to say on this new record. And I hear him talk about this a lot, about the importance of it. Just that he doesn't want to leave that stone unturned, right? And I love that. I love the determination, to be able to share your voice that way. In the chat here, I see Brent Angelo. I'm so glad he's here talking about the special edition of Envy of None. Brent's an amazing photographer and a friend of mine here in Portland. And so I'm glad you got the special edition. What's different on that record?
Thank you, Brent. Yeah, the special edition has a bonus disc that has, I think, five extra songs. Wow. 2 of them are completely new songs. There's instrumentals of 2 of the other songs, and then a remix of Shadow that is more acoustic and has Bethany, that same cellist I was talking about earlier, added some really beautiful cellos to that version. And there's 2 other songs, Lethe River and You'll Be Sorry, that are on the bonus disc. And Lethe River was actually a song that I wrote when I was 16, and I sent these guys the song. I was like, hey, do you want to add this to the Envy of None stuff? And we did, and it was actually more of a rock song that I wrote at 16. I had electric guitar and bass in it, and that I did myself, and then I was like, feel free to change the instrumentation, and Andy ended up making it more of this sort of like techno pop song that's kind of interesting. So it was really fun for me to sort of see them take that and reimagine it and change it up a little bit. But yeah, it's, and also a really cool full circle moment for me to have that song that I wrote when I was a junior in high school after being inspired by my Greek mythology lesson.
Oh yeah. Where did you go to school?
So that year I was at a school called Loyola Sacred Heart, which is actually
Okay.
the high school my parents went to, which is kind of funny. But
Right.
yeah, that was the year that I ended up writing that song. And it's also the first year I really started pursuing music as a career. I started playing at coffee shops and bars, and they would put X's on my hands because I
Oh yeah.
wasn't
Gotta
allowed
leave.
to, yeah,
No
hang out at the
drinking.
bar. Yeah.
Gotta leave at the breaks,
Yeah.
man. Isn't that? I mean, I used to sneak into places like that in Montana
Right.
too because I didn't care about drinking. I just wanted to go see the artists, and
Right. Yeah,
and
me too.
but sitting outside in the rain was miserable, right? Like I want to go.
Yeah, it's my first experience in Portland too, because I was still only, I think I was 19 when I moved to Portland, and
Okay.
I did an open mic at Kelly's Olympian, and they normally don't let minors even do the open mic. They're like, it's too risky. We're not technically supposed to. Really, we've had bad experiences in the past, and I was like, I promise I'm trustworthy. I'll just go in for my song and come back out. And they, were really sweet and let me do it. And they put X's on my hands and stuff. And I went and I did my 2 songs. And then I sat outside staring through the window and trying to like hear the other musicians, and was like clapping on the outside. And it was raining, and it's totally that same situation. Just
Oh
really
my god,
funny.
I love it though. Well, props to Kelly's for allowing you to do it. Props to you for having the doe eyes, to be able to get
Right.
yourself in there for sure. And really cool of you to stick around and want to support the other artists. I could see that in
Yeah.
you. The, God, those are great chapters for your book.
Right.
When you're writing the chapters of Maiah Wynne's book, at the end of the day, you're going to be thinking, I remember when I was 19, standing outside in the rain, looking at it, and some of those artists that you were supporting, maybe they'll go on and they'll do some great commercial things, and you'll say, I was one of the first supporters of you. So just so you
Yeah.
know, yeah,
Exactly.
can't you just throw that down for Andy and Alex now for video concepts? Like, I have this perfect.
That'd be a great idea. I love that.
See, I've got all sorts of ideas for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
I
send
think
them my way.
we need to collaborate.
We should.
Oh my,
I'd love that.
just I think like hearing the instrumentation of Envy of None is really really cool, and I listen to your solo stuff too, and I can hear influences, but not in a way where you're directly sort of like well, I went to a Sarah McLachlan show and now I sound like Sarah McLachlan, but I can hear inspiration for sure, and some of the like female songwriters that just really affected me in the way that your voice does. Paula Cole, I'm a huge fan. I think she I first heard her with Peter Gabriel on his live album, and I said, okay, her voice, but the way she communicates her message is so authentic. That was the thing. I felt like there's something so sincere, and it's not contrived at all. Like they're trying to sell records, but she is telling her story. Love it or hate it, warts and all. This is who she is, and Sarah for sure. She's another one. Lorena McKennitt. A lot of the Lilith Fair era. Those women thankfully got their voices out there to a wider audience, and I could see that you could appeal to that demographic. You could appeal to a modern, like I'm a big fan of Garbage and Mozzie Star and Cocteau Twins. Sort of that vibe. Is there anybody you're listening to now? It's as a Portlander, right? Like you talked about doing house concerts. My favorite band in town actually is Tango Alpha Tango. I love them, and I've seen them do small independent house concerts and then bigger shows. Is there anybody in Portland that you think, you know what? If I had a big budget and I could take a Portland artist out with me, is there anybody that you think, I want to bring them with?
I think I've thought about that a lot, and I feel like especially after going through all of the same sort of trials as an independent artist, I want to, if I do get to that level of success where I'm doing some sort of like big or even like, I don't know, a big stadium tour, let's say in theoretical world where I've become super successful, and that would be amazing. But I have this plan that if that happens, what I want to do is have basically like a showcase of local artists as the opener, where each musician would get to play a few songs, and I'd go out there and be like, hey, all of these people are in your town and they're incredibly talented. Make sure you write down their names and you go see them and support them, because at one point I was in this place too, and you have all these amazing musicians right here ready to listen to on the weekends. And I really want to do that. I really want to, if I get to that level of success, I want to try to open doors for more and more people. And it's such a challenging industry, and I feel like I want to, if I get up there, I want to reach back down and open doors for as many people as I can. And because it's not like it's pie, it's not like a limited amount of
Right.
seats at the table. It's and there's room for everybody. There's so many people out there looking for music and who want to listen to new music and find new artists. And it's the more we can support each other and make connections and open doors for each other, the better it's going to be. I feel like I really want to try to change that culture as much as I can, and try to really open doors for people, because I feel like it's so hard, and there's not a lot of opportunities that don't come with a lot of really scary strings like all those reality TV shows do. And it's just like it's hard to navigate, and I just want to try to change that and make a difference in that way.
You said a few things right there. You said, if I ever get to that point. Well, of course, we know that's not an if, right? It's when. And who says that you have to be at a arena level in order to do that, right? I mean,
It's true.
you're giving back in so many ways, and even making that declaration, I think, is fantastic, because it shows your heart. Brent sees it here too. Yeah, the world does need more of that. Being able to pay that stuff forward, it does come back around, and it really is what it's all about. And I love that you're not selfish. I love that you're generous in this way. I don't think Maiah Wynne needs to wait until the arena tour to do that. But the songwriter and the round sort of collective in each city is really cool. I've not thought about that kind of environment. My favorite thing to do last month when I was throughout the UK was to check out. We had a different opener every show, and I fell in love with a couple bands. I did. I got so giddy and so excited, and I'm like, okay, first of all, I need you on my show, and I want to buy everything you own, and I want to tell everybody I know about this stuff, because you're in Birmingham, England, and unless you're out there putting it out there for everybody, I just want somebody on the other side of the pond that may not have known about you to know about it. And so on a small level, I'm feeling like, yes, there's a Maiah Wynne in me as well. The one thing I can say, here's so I see that Heidi, your friend here, says that they jumped in on Dog's Life, which also is another really cool song. Eric Nazario, she was talking to Eric Nazario about Dreadlight.
Yeah.
We could talk about the Envy of None record. People need to go get it, because if they haven't already, they need to get a special edition, because I don't have that version with all these other songs. But there's also this new Maiah Wynne album coming out. And so September is when you're talking about releasing it.
Mm.
If there's a house concert tour, and I would like to offer up a venue, because
Yes, please.
I think, there's a community of people that want to host these as well. And the way that really works well is if there are enough contiguous shows together where you don't have to play and then drive 9 hours to the next show. If you can drive 2 hours, play another show. So folks, go to maiahwynne.com. Make sure you hit her up so that you want to support her, and get a budget together with local community so that you can buy the records and help support her record on her own.
Oh, yes, please. I would love that.
They get in on the ground floor, because, man, it's going to be hard to be booking you. Like, it really is. I didn't, I don't even know that I'm worthy of this, but I really would love if you're willing to share one more song before we go. Would you be up for it?
Yes, I would love that.
Sweet.
Actually, who was it? Somebody was asking for, was it Ian?
Oh, the cosplay song. Yeah. So,
yeah. So I'm going to look up.
Okay. Let's see. It's way back in the chat here.
Yeah.
Lots of good comments and questions. Yeah. Ian or Eric Nazario said the cosplay song's Lucy Gray. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, so I'm going to do a song called Pure as the Driven Snow, which I've just been feeling it so much lately. I usually do it on the uke, but I'm going to do it on the guitar.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
It's one of my favorites from this series of songs that I did, and I love doing it. So.
Awesome. As she's picking up her guitar, folks, you can see the link below, maiahwynne.com. And if you came here late, I'm going to put this other link up here. It's a gratuitous promotion, but a lot of folks are watching this on Facebook, and I would love it if you go to the YouTube channel, or you can go to accesskevin.com. That way you can see this video. You can also go back and look through other 240 some other episodes I've done in the last year and a half. But this will be there at that location. If you subscribe to this YouTube channel, then I will point everything towards Maiah. So with no further ado, I have a beautiful song from the incredible voice of Maiah Wynne. And this song again is?
Pure as the driven snow.
Okay.
I'm
Beautiful.
going to tune really fast because
tuning's overrated.
Colder, yeah.
Tuning, meter. I tell my band, tempo's overrated.
Right.
When you go out and you do the touring on your own, are you going out just solo, you and a couple of guitars and mandolins, or?
Yeah, for bigger shows, I'll have a band with cello and drums, and my guitarist Brooks Berg, who's so amazing and talented, and but yeah, it depends on the show. A lot of the house shows, just because they're smaller and more intimate, I'll either be solo or just with me and a cellist, depending on where we are at. But yeah, I play a lot of instruments on my solo shows. I'll do drums with my feet while I'm playing guitar. Yeah. So it still gets a pretty full sound. And
I got a cajon, just
yeah, and I do have a very talented percussionist who joins me sometimes too and plays djembe and shakers, and gets that nice beefy
give these
low
people
end.
props. Who are these folks that you're talking about? We give them props.
So Troy, who also goes by Elephant, who's my co-producer and does a lot of the sound at my live shows. He's an incredibly talented mixer and also percussionist, and he does he does 8 million things for me all at once, all the time. He's just one of those guys that's multi-talented and also a graphic designer, and he's one of those just very, very talented people, and I'm so grateful for him and all of his hard work and support. And so he often comes to my shows and does all of the sound and then also plays percussion, and I'm so grateful for him. So grateful, because that's a lot of work. And
yeah.
And then I have oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, Maiah's gratitude list is phenomenal. Really, I mean, when I listen to how much, you revere all the support and help and people around your life, you really do have an amazing way to honor those people. So I think, it makes sense that more people would want to be a part of your life just because you really do honor them. It's amazing.
I feel like I owe them so much. It's really true. I'm so grateful for them and especially Troy and Heidi. They've done so much for me, but I feel like I could owe them a million thanks, and it still wouldn't be enough to really scratch the surface of all of the hard work that they've put into behind the scenes. And it's true.
Right on.
I'm really grateful.
and I'm grateful too. Thank you, Heidi, for connecting us. And I just have to tell you, I know that I've sort of capitalized a lot of your time, but I'm in awe of your spirit too. So your talent and your spirit is pretty magical. So I appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you. This is for whoever requested the
Eric Nazario.
Eric, this is for you.
Right on.
Everyone's born as clean as a whistle, as fresh as a daisy, and not a bit crazy. Staying that way's a hard road for hoeing, as rough as a briar, like walking through fire. This world, it's dark, and this world is scary. I've taken some hits, so no wonder I'm wary. It's why I need And everyone wants to be like the hero, the cake with the cream, or the doer, not dreamer. Doing's hard work, it takes some to change things, like goat's milk to butter, like ice blocks to water. This world goes blind when children are dying. I turn into dust, but you never stop trying. That's why I love you. You're pure as the driven snow, cold and clean, swirling over my skin. You cloak me, you soak right in, down to my heart. And everyone thinks they know all about me. They slap me with labels, they spit out their fables. You came along, you knew it was lying. You saw the ideal me, and yes, that's the real me. This world, it's cruel, with troubles aplenty. You asked for a reason, I've got 3 and 20 for why I trust you. You're pure as the driven snow. Ooh, ooh. That's why I trust you. You're pure as the driven snow. It's been so long since I've done a song like that, especially like it's been a really long time since I've done those songs in particular, but just songs in general. I'm so rusty, but thank you.
I don't even get it. Honestly, if you close your eyes and you listen to your voice, it feels like you're right there in the room with you. Just a beautiful voice and a beautiful energy. I feel selfish, that I stole some of that and get to share it with you folks. But you guys that are watching this know how special that was. This girl's a real game changer. We need like millions and millions of Maiah Wynnes out there. Yeah.
We'd all just be crying all the time.
No, you know what, man, that crying good tears, right?
Yeah.
Or brain-gasming all over the place.
Yeah. Just all over the place. Yeah.
There's some visual elements there that I feel like you get the trademark for it. But man, listen, between now and September, I know that we're going to see a lot of stuff happening with you and Empty of None. I would imagine you guys are going to be doing some one-offs between now and then. People can find out about your performances at maiahwynne.com and get out and get the special edition of the Envy of None album. Make sure you go to visionmerch.com and get both the 7-inch single that's done as a benefit for the folks of Ukraine, and also pick up all the merchandise that you can, because this is going to be the most incredible new band you've ever seen. Melinda, I'm glad you were here and we're able to take a break from your challenges for about an hour and a half, because we all benefit. That was the best therapeutic session. I needed it. Are you pre-selling the solo album yet, is what Brent wants to know. Can you pre-order that on your album, on your website?
No, not yet. But once we have it ready for pre-order, I'll let you know. Because the pre-orders are such a huge and beneficial thing to artists. So thank you for being somebody who pre-orders a record, because that really helps us and makes a huge difference. So once I do have that ready, I'll let you guys know.
Excellent.
For sure.
Excellent. And if you guys did come in here late and you missed these incredible performances from Maiah and this really fun conversation, you can go to accesskevin.com, www.accesskevin.com. It's all there. Subscribe to the channel. Go to maiahwynne.com. Buy it. thank you to you and your mom and your friendager and all of your family. I like that Brooks was able to get in and thank you for giving him props too while you were playing.
Oh, he's so great. You can tell just how supportive everyone is because they're all just
Yeah.
hanging out here.
Yep. Well, in this time, right, during the pandemic, when we don't get to see live music as much, it really is a blessing to get to hear somebody with your talent and your gift. So you made my day. Best part of my day by far. So thank you for this.
Thanks for having me. You've been so wonderful, and it's been so great getting to talk with you. And I hope I get to stay in touch, and maybe we'll do some sort of collaboration. It'd be great.
I really look forward to it. I'll even I'm going to connect you with Caleb because Caleb's new record's going to come out, and as you know, he's smitten now. So awesome.
I love that.
Maiah, thank you, and thanks to all of you guys for watching. Some really cool shows coming up next week. I've got John Moyer from Disturbed. It'll be Metal Week, and then the week after, Todd Latore on Cinco de Mayo from Queensryche, the singer, and Doug Wimbish from Living Color will be coming back. Unfortunately, his mom was not well, so we had to postpone, but Living Color and Sugar Hill Gang will be represented. Sugar Hill will be the second week of May. So we got 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2020s right here. So on the ancestor, on the anniversary of the loss of Prince, thank you for bringing me light. So have a beautiful, beautiful time, and go out and get Envy of None, everyone.
Thank you guys.